Welcome to the 9th quarantine note. These are academic keynotes that I have given over time, just sort of taking the best bits out of them over the last 20 or so years and providing you with maybe a little bit of professional development, maybe something to think about. I hope that you enjoy it. Can you believe that we're almost 3 months in? What would you go back and tell yourself 3 months ago if you could? Buy some toilet paper? Invest in Zoom? I don't know. But let's talk about academia and education for a minute. Again, if you've not seen my kind of credibility statement, please go back and check out the very first video. I hope you check out some of the other videos that talk about just different things from e-learning to best practices for teaching and learning. It really is something that we all could probably brush up on at any given time. Today, I'm excited to talk to you about the notion of individual education at scale. And that's one of those things that seems like a dichotomy, or at least it has for the better part of probably multiple centuries. But we can do things differently than we have before. One of my favorite things to do is to try to look at a concept, an idea, even a story with a unique set of eyes. One of my favorite quotes from Stephen Schwartz, who wrote Wicked, is when he was talking about how he decided to write Wicked. He said, I wanted to see Wicked as if I was standing off to the side of that Wizard of Oz experience. And I wondered what the characters were doing when you couldn't see them on camera. I was wondering what it would look like if you could see what was happening to all the rest of the environment not being shown through that lens. And that's really the idea of, of innovation and creativity. It's something that CEOs are looking for, entrepreneurs are looking for, managers are looking for in our students. But it's also something that is just of particular interest to me. It's probably why I was so drawn to hear Malcolm Gladwell talk. I think the very first talk that I ever heard him give was a TED Talk when he described this guy named Howard Moskowitz. Now, Howard Moskowitz was a person who really changed how you and I encounter food and the choices around food, especially when it comes to things in stores as well as restaurants. And he did this through helping out Campbell's, which was at the time getting ready to launch the Prego tomato sauce brand. Now, I won't go into too much detail right now. You can certainly go watch Malcolm Gladwell tell the story. He tells it with much more aplomb than I ever have. But what I try to do is synthesize Malcolm Gladwell's story down into just a couple of minutes to describe the importance of choice and the importance of not just looking at anything as if one size fits all, which back in the late 70s and early 80s, there was really one tomato brand that you could choose from, tomato sauce brand, and that was Ragu. That was what everybody used. It came in a can, it looked very similar to this. And what Howard figured out, not just when working with Campbell's, but with some other things too, like Pepsi and some other things that he was a marketer for, he utilized psychology in terms of how he chose to market. And basically what he said to Prego was, you're getting the equation wrong. You're not looking for that one tomato sauce that will beat Ragu, that just hits all the population. No. What you're looking for are multiple tomato sauces that will reach large populations within the culture. And that by doing that, you will dominate the market. And in fact, that's exactly what happened. He came out with, different kinds of sauces, but not too many sauces. It wasn't one for every person on the planet. It wasn't one for every person in North America. It was 4, 5, 6 sauces that appealed to huge groups of people that they could enjoy. Now, when I first started telling the story, this was, 15 years ago now, I really used it to illustrate the notion of scaling a personalized experience for education. And I said, so far, what we had always tried to do was to deal with everybody as if they were one kind of student. We tried to give them one methodology, one instructional concept, one set of homework, one set of tests, one set of everything. And the reason for that was obvious. If we tried to do everything for an individual, it wouldn't work. There's not enough people, there's not enough teachers, there's not enough curriculum, there's not enough textbooks, there's just not enough of anything that looks different. But not having one for every person is very different than having one for every person, isn't it? What we really need to do is try to cluster our students based on proclivities, based on sensitivities, based on what motivates them, what helps them to learn. What was exciting to me was not too long ago, just a few years back, a new book came out that really reinforced this, but now in a much more scientific way, in a much more rigorous way. It was a book called The End of Average by Todd out of Harvard. And he talked about Averagarian thinking. Now, I've often done this in the keynotes. I will ask people to stand up and to remain standing if these things apply to them. So I'll just ask you to sort of stand in your mind as I present these to you. If you were standing up, would you be able to stay standing if I asked if you had the average height of a male or a female, depending on your gender, in our culture? And if not, then I would ask you to sit. I would then ask you if you have the average shoe size of people in our culture. And if not, I would ask you to sit. I would then ask if you fit into the average weight category in our culture. And if not, I would have you sit. Now, usually when we get here, almost everyone in the audience has been seated. In fact, I've done this in rooms of 3,000 and 4,000 people. And usually by this time, we only have about a dozen or so left. I go on and ask about eye color. I ask about how much you make. And then I ask about how much money is in your wallet. No one's ever gotten to how much money is in their wallet in any audience I've ever delivered this to. Why? Because you and I both understand pretty intuitively that we're not average when it comes to average. It doesn't work that way. Now, this is physical stuff. I didn't even ask for psychographics. I could have gone into much more variable, rich things that you think or you feel or you find value in. And you would really struggle to find anything that you had in common with everybody else in a room. It just wouldn't happen. Our students are the same way. See, what you and I now kind of understand based on this, our world has had to come to that realization. And Todd tells the story of back in the 1950s when the Air Force was losing multi-million-dollar planes every day. They were really struggling. They were having accidents. They were falling to the ground. They were blowing up, and the Air Force couldn't figure it out why. And so what they did was they commissioned someone to say, look, go in and see if the cockpit is set up wrong. We haven't changed the dimensions of the cockpit since we created it back in World War I. So let's see. We think maybe people have grown. Maybe their arms are longer. Whatever. Let's take 7 measures or so of like chest size, the length of their sleeve, neck size, things like that. And let's find the best average cockpit so that we can make sure everybody can reach everything and they can see all the stuff they have to see, and maybe we'll start losing planes. Well, as you can imagine, they found what you and I now probably intuitively know, that there was no such thing as average. That when they looked at these elements, how many had all 7 in common? None. How about 6? None. How about 5 of those things in common? None. 4 of those things in common? None. It wasn't until they got to 3 of those things in common that they found 3 of their 4,063 pilots that shared all 3 traits of average dimension. They learned what you and I really know intuitively, that there is no such thing as an average pilot. See, what people had forgotten up until that point by averaging humanity, and this is something that you'll have to read his book. He does a phenomenal job describing how this started with a man named Quetzalcoatl and how it really grew over time and probably grew in ways that really was like a monster growing horns. But the science of the time forgot another important piece of science, which is this thing called ergodic theory. It basically says, this is out of chemistry, by the way, if you want to average 2 things, then those 2 things have to have 2 things in common. 1, they have to be the same, and 2, they have to stay the same. They have to remain the same. Well, obviously that doesn't apply to people. Never has, never will. That's why if I were to ask you, which of these men is bigger, it's a ludicrous question. You couldn't answer it. There is no answer, no good answer. I could give you the measures for average sized people. That still doesn't help because we don't work that way. We're too variable rich, which is also why there's no such thing as an average student. That just doesn't exist. The average student is a myth, which is both good news and bad news. It's bad news because we average our students all the time. That's how our entire educational system is built up, as if people are better than other people because they have certain proclivities and don't have others. But it's good for you in that there's no such thing as the average teacher. Because if we started talking about the average teacher, well, most teachers are average if you want to put them into a bell curve. Most teachers aren't great. And so that's probably not ideal for most of you. There's no such thing as the average school or university or college or technical school. There's just no such thing as average when it comes to people. And yet it is something that we base a lot of future, a lot of vision, a lot of promise on that we probably shouldn't. I highly encourage you to read The End of Average. It will change your outlook on many, many things. But the key here is to understand that when we deal with our students, that we cannot deal with all students as if they're the same. We can't treat them all the same. When I'm dealing with my speech students and I'm trying to teach them about persuasion, there are some who are highly motivated by the notion that they don't want to be tricked. And so we talk about persuasive strategies that are used by infomercials and commercials and politicians and things that can really be tricky. Others want very much to understand how to put persuasion together because they've got some sort of persuasive thing that they have to do. Others say, well, when it comes to persuasion, I want to see what has happened to me in the past or what I can do in the future or what I'm doing right now. I don't go through and talk to every student about every element that might persuade them. No, I look for the 4, 5, 6 themes that I know work for my students. That's how we have to teach. That's how we have to assess. That's how we have to look at outcomes and objectives. That's how we have to measure. When it comes to scaling personalization, we can do it as long as we get away from thinking that there is some kind of average for humans, which there's not, that everything will apply to everyone the same way, which it won't. But instead, by taking those thematic concepts and thinking about how we might be able to apply them to a large swath of people, which will eventually get most everybody into the same space. Thanks very much. I hope you've enjoyed this quarantine note. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.